A lot of people talk about quitting, what happens in the brain when motivation fades, and how to train yourself to keep going when things get uncomfortable. But for some of you, a different problem showed up. You're not someone who quits easily. Your problem is almost the opposite. You want to do too many things. You look at your life and see multiple futures that all feel real. Creative paths, careers, interests, and none of them feel fake. They all feel like you. You're not scared of effort. You're stuck because choosing one thing feels like killing the others. That paralysis has a name. It's often described as, I could do anything if I just knew what to focus on. And society has a label for people like this. They call you a dabbler, a jack of all trades, master of none. That label hurts because it turns curiosity into a flaw. It makes your wide interests feel like a weakness instead of what they really are. Today I want to dismantle that anxiety, not by telling you to just focus, but by showing you why that advice was built for a world that no longer exists. For most of the last century, success followed a simple rule. Pick one thing, go deep, stay there for decades. This worked because the world was stable. Rules didn't change quickly. Feedback was clear. Psychologists call this a kind learning environment. If you repeated the same skill long enough, you got better results. This is where the specialist thrived, the person with one deep column of expertise. But that's not the world we're living in now. Today, the environment is unpredictable. Rules shift. Careers change. Skills expire. This is what's called a wicked learning environment. Think of the difference between a golfer and a firefighter. A golfer plays the same game every time. Same rules. Same feedback. A firefighter never knows what situation they're walking into. Every problem is different. Old solutions don't always apply. In a world like this, extreme specialization can create blind spots. And here's the important part. The specialist path is not wrong. It's just not the only path. When it's treated as the only valid model, people like you start feeling broken, when in reality, your brain is just optimized for something else. Instead of thinking in job titles, it helps to think in shapes. The specialist is a straight vertical line. Deep, narrow expertise. On the opposite end is the shallow generalist. Wide knowledge, no depth. That's where anxiety really grows, because nothing feels solid. But there's a third shape, the most powerful one for curious minds. Think of it as multiple deep pillars connected together. You go deep in more than one area, and your range of interests connects them. For example, you might go deep in something practical that pays the bills. At the same time, you go deep in something creative or communicative. And surrounding those pillars are interests like psychology, history, design, or philosophy. Suddenly, you're not unfocused. You're the person who can connect ideas that others can't. That combination is rare, and rarity creates value. What makes this possible is something called transfer. A specialist mostly applies skills to similar problems, but a polymath sees patterns. They recognize structure. Someone who understands music might recognize rhythm in code. Someone who studies architecture might see better ways to organize information. Someone who understands psychology might communicate ideas more clearly than anyone else in the room. Your random interests are not random. They're a library of mental models waiting to be combined. So how do you actually build a life like this without feeling scattered all the time? The first rule is this: you cannot build everything at once. That leads straight back to shallow progress. Instead, you build in seasons. You choose one pillar, not forever, just for now, 6 months, a year, maybe a bit more. The goal isn't perfection, it's fluency. You want to reach a point where you can handle most problems in that field without constantly feeling lost. When that curiosity feels satisfied, you don't abandon it. You graduate from it. That's not quitting. That's intentional progression. Then you move on to building the next pillar. The second strategy is about stability. If your mind is wired for exploration, constant stress will kill your creativity. That's why many highly creative people kept stable, even boring jobs. Not because they lacked ambition, but because stability gave them mental space. A job doesn't have to be your passion to be useful. Sometimes its real value is that it protects your energy. A job that drains everything from you leaves nothing for curiosity. A job that's good enough can become the foundation that lets your mind roam freely after hours. Reframe it. It's not a cage, it's a platform. The final piece is systems, because let's be honest, your mind generates ideas faster than it can hold them. Trying to remember everything is exhausting. That's why external systems matter. Write things down. Capture obsessions while they're alive. Notes, concepts, questions. You don't need to finish anything immediately. Just store it. Months or years later, those old ideas will collide with new ones in ways you never planned. That's where real insight comes from. But it only happens if you save the dots instead of letting them disappear. So let's bring this together. You are not unfocused. You are not lazy. You are not failing. You are someone whose mind is built to connect worlds, not live inside one narrow lane. Once you stop forcing yourself into a shape that doesn't fit, the self-criticism fades. You start working with your nature instead of against it. Build one pillar at a time. Use stability as a tool, not a trap. Create systems that respect how your mind works. You were never meant to be just one thing. You were meant to see how everything fits together. And that ability, when used intentionally, is powerful.